Broadcasting live from SETI Alpha 6 in the Andromeda Galaxy, this is Mr. C.
Hey, 8th graders, I've got my pretend binoculars on looking at the weekend. I can see it from here, given the fact it's Thursday. But we've got some, as they say, figure of speech, we've got some water to go under the dam yet, some important water, and that would be test number 4. Now, I'm going to start off with some really good news. Woohoo, good news, no test next week. Oh, thank you, Mr. C. No test next week. So it doesn't mean you don't study. It doesn't mean you're not going to work hard, right? Right. Now, homework in LPs, the only thing really, your homework in your lesson planner. Test tomorrow. Test tomorrow. I'm going to tell you exactly what's on the test. So, like I normally do on Thursday, but we've already reviewed some. Hey, you need a red pen. You need 11G, the worksheet 11G. It needs to come out. So I've got it buried in here somewhere. Where is it? There it is. Yeah. So 11G, discovering cells, out it comes. So we're going to grade it in just a little bit. So you're getting your red pen out. You're getting out 11G. I'll explain how we're going to grade it. Then I'm going to tell you what's on the test. Okay, here it is, 11G. Now, this is the first time that we've graded one of these worksheets. They're going to be worth 6 points. Mr. C, that's weird. There's like 10 questions. I know. Each one is worth half a point. So half a point, 0.5 times 10, what is that? 5 points. Okay. Move the decimal point. Okay, just move it 1 to the right, you got 5 points. So this is worth 5 points. Be honest as you grade this. No other pens and pencils out, just red ones. Mr. Gilbert's keeping an eye out, perhaps 2. So anyway, now I ask you to put page numbers, and I'm going to ask you all the time. Page numbers, 5 through 11, and up over here it says page number in the margin for each one. Now here's the way it works. Every time we do these, if you don't have page numbers, it's going to cost you 1 out of 6. So the total is 6 points. But when you put a fraction at the top, it's going to be out of 5. And then whatever you get from the page numbers, you'll put plus 1/2, 0.5, or plus 1. So here's the way it's going to work. I'm going to give you 1 miss on the page numbers. So 1 out of the 10. If you didn't get it, you don't have it, then not going to take anything off. If you have at least 5 of the page numbers when we're all done correct, then you get half a point. If you've got 9 correct, remember you can have 1 miss, so if you get 9, then you get the extra point. Okay? So let's do it. The first one, so you've got yours, I'm going over it. A cell's functions. Now, function means jobs. Can include obtaining food and water and getting rid of, it's the stuff that goes out. Wastes. Page 5. So the answer to number 1, wastes, page 5. Number 2, compound microscopes focus light through lenses. I showed you a convex lens yesterday to produce a magnified image. Page 8. That was page 8. Okay, you're being honest, right? Number 3, a large organism. Organism just means living thing. A large organism is made up of many millions of, it's sort of a no-brainer, cells. You know, this is Hey, what is this about discovering cells? How about that? So, number 3, cells. Mr. C, I see you didn't have a page number by it. No, I had already planned to let you have one miss on the page numbers, but to be honest, I couldn't find number 3. You probably go, oh, Mr. C, it was so easy. So, well, anyway, that would have been my miss. It is my miss. Okay, number 4. Some kind of lens has a center that's thicker than its edge. It's this shape. So it's thicker in the center. This shape. It's the kind of lens I showed you yesterday that magnifies. It's called a convex lens. C-O-N-V-E-X, convex. Page 8. It was on page 8. Number 4, page 8, convex. Half a point for the correct answer. And then you either have the page or you don't. All right, number 5. The cell theory describes how cells are related to living things. Page 7. Cell theory. Now, what page did I say? It's page 7. Cell theory, page 7. That's number 5. All right, number 6 now. The ability to distinguish between two nearby objects is called resolution. It's page 10. Resolution, page 10. For number 6. Now, when we get all done, if you're missing something, hopefully Mr. Gilbert can help you. All right, number 7 now. The scientist who determined that all animals are made out of cells. That was C as in Charlie, Schwann. And it's page 7. So number 7, page 7, C as in Charlie, Schwann. Number 8, a compound microscope. It's got a 10x eyepiece, magnification of 10 eyepiece, and a 40x objective. What's the magnification? Well, it said on page 9, you just multiply them together. 10 times 40, 400, D as in delta. Number 8, D as in delta, 400, page 9 for number 8. Okay. Number 9 now. Which of the following statements is not part of cell theory? Well, A, C, and D are. So that means B as in Bravo is not. Cells can absorb food and oxygen. Well, they do, but that's not part of cell theory. Page 7. Number 9, page 7, B as in Bravo. Okay, number 10 now. The visible field of a microscope is 10 millimeters wide. Not very big. Okay, 10 millimeters wide. How large is an object that only takes up 1/4 of that visible field? Well, it's a math problem. It's 1/4 of 10 millimeters. What is it? 2.5 millimeters. It's a math problem. B as in Bravo for number 10. Number 10, B as in Bravo, page 10. Number 10, page 10. All right, I'm going to quickly go over the answers and page numbers. So if you missed one, pay attention right now. Really focus, okay? Otherwise, the rest of you, here's what you're doing. You're putting half a point for each of the 10. If you got all 5, put 5 out of 5. Don't include the page numbers. And then put plus, if you got at least 5 of the page numbers right, plus 1/2. If you got 9 or 10 of the page numbers, put plus 1. So it's 5 out of 5 plus 1. All right, here are the answers really quick. Number 1, the answer is wastes, page 5. Number 2, lenses, page 8. Pay attention if you need one. Number 3, a large organism is made up of millions of cells. I don't have the page number. Number 4, convex lens, page 8. Number 5, cell theory, page 7. Number 6, resolution is the answer, page 10. Number 7, It's Swan, C as in Charlie, page 7. Number 8, 400, D as in Delta. Number 8, D as in Delta, page 9. Number 9, cells can absorb food and oxygen, B as in Bravo. Number 9, B as in Bravo, page 7. Number 10, B as in Bravo, 2.5 millimeters, page 10. Okay, now you can score it. Number right over 5, each one is half a point for those you got right. And then if you got at least 5 of the page numbers, plus 1/2. Or if you got 9 or 10 of the page numbers, plus 1. Make sure you've got name, date, and period in the upper right-hand corner. Don't even think about turning it in until you've got name, date, period. Okay. So pass it into the center section. Mr. Gilbert will pick those up. And I'm going to tell you what's on the test. So pay attention, stand by, telling you what's on the test. First, on the test. So you're probably writing this down on something. What's on the test? Scientific method. I'll use this side. Steps of the scientific method. How are you going to ask them? Probably the same way I did last week. What is the diary step? Data. So like that. What's the answer step? Conclusion. What's the educated guess idea? Hypothesis. What's the question step? Problem. So look over all the steps of the scientific method. Okay? Then you've got this. I am going to ask you probably 15, 16, 20 points from this. LS1. Have you got it out? If you didn't, totally highlight it yesterday. Mr. C, are you going to ask about cells are the basic units of structure and function? Structure is just how something is built. It's its structure. A building is made of steel girders with a certain shape. It's like a high-rise. Okay? Then I'm going to ask you for GRL. GRL stands for the 3 functions that a cell carries out. What does a cell do for an organism? G for grow. Okay? R for reproduce. Grow. Reproduce. And then L, keep it alive. Living. The living kind of part of it. To keep it alive. So then the middle section is cell theory. The parts of cell theory. All living things are made of cells. Plant, animal, human, made of cells. All living things. Okay? Cells are the basic unit, kind of like building block of living things, and function, kind of part that keeps the cell going, the GRL part. And then the last one is all cells are produced from other cells, the reproduce part. Okay, so cell theory. There's 3 points right there. How do microscopes work? I'm just going to stick to this right here, this darkened section right here that says some microscopes focus light through lenses, like I showed you yesterday, and some focus things and magnify them using beams of electrons, subatomic particles, smaller than atoms. Okay? So anyway, I'm just going to stick with that on the microscope. Next week, more on the microscope. And perhaps a little mini lab on the microscope. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask you about the parts of an animal or a human cell. There's 3 parts. Animal or human cell. Yesterday you saw a photo of animal human cells beside a plant cell. So the animal human cells have a membrane, the outer part, membrane. Then they've got a thick liquidy part, cytoplasm. So membrane, cytoplasm, cytoplasm. I've got it right down here. And then the center of the cell where the DNA is, the nucleus. Do them with me, the three parts of a cell, starting with the outside part. The membrane, the cytoplasm, the nucleus. Okay. How about plant cells? Plant cells have those same three parts, but they have two additional parts. And I'll probably ask you, why did the Lord give plant cells these extra parts? It's very logical. In fact, you better write these down. I may ask you, why do plant cells have a thick outside cell wall? Why? Thick cell wall. Why? Well, they don't have any bones. So they've got to have some kind of structure that holds them up and keeps them stiff. Cell wall does that function, does that job. The second thing they have on the inside in the cytoplasm are chloroplasts, and they're green in color. What do they have in them? Chlorophyll. What does the chlorophyll do? Chlorophyll makes food in the presence of sunlight. That's why Chlora and Phil died all the time, because they didn't get sunlight and they couldn't manufacture food. So they died because they weren't getting enough light in my room. So anyway, so I'll ask you about the two kinds of cells. So human animal cells and the boxy rectangular plant cells with chloroplasts and thick cell walls. Okay? Then I'm going to ask you what goes in, what goes out of a cell. What are the things that go in? O2 in, CO2 out. That's out of a human animal cell. O2 in, CO2 out. What else goes into a cell to keep it alive? Food. And then what else has to go in? Water. So food, water, oxygen. What comes out of a human animal cell? Leftover food. What do we call it? Wastes. What's the waste gas that comes out? CO2, carbon dioxide, CO2 comes out. And then excess water. So things that go in and out of a cell. They're in your book. Okay, they're in your book. They were on the early page there in your book. Now I have just enough time to go over your last test. Yep, just enough time. Okay, so here are the answers to your test. Okay, so this one was a 30 out of 30. So here we go. Now, there's something I don't understand. I don't get this. What I don't get is on the top half of this test, and it's been that way for the last few tests, the first 8 points, I told you they were going to be there, the verses, and the meaning of the verses. Most people got them right, or got most of it right, or all of it right. But there were a few people who had nothing down. Nothing. Well, if it's a 30-point test, you've already missed 8. Now, there's a law in science. It's called the law of cause and effect. Causes make things happen. Effects. What's the cause and effect going on here? The cause, people didn't study. The effect, lower score. Now, if your parents are talking to you about, hey, how come your test scores, weren't higher? Tell them the truth. I didn't study. Did you know that was going to be on the test? Every week. I told you on Wednesday and Thursday it was going to be there. Every week. What was going on? You know? So, anyway, I'm telling you, I've already told you what's going to be on the test. All right, here's number 9. The very tiny germs are viruses. What are they killed by? Vaccines. I'm just going over last week's test. The bigger germs are called bacteria, and they're killed by antibiotics. I ask you to give me the planet pairs, so it's Mars and Venus. Mars is orange, Venus super bright, Jupiter's the largest, Saturn has really cool rings. What do SSRs stand for? Stop and smell the roses. What should be our attitude? An attitude of gratitude toward SSRs. Why does God give us SSRs? So we can enjoy them. It's a blessing. Enjoy. What's the major point about the individual organs in any human body system? You know how you drew in the organs? I had you do that. Why did I have you do that? I wanted you to understand that the organs are in the right place, they're the right size, the right shape, and they're hooked up to the right other organs. And what does it prove? It proves they had to be created. They're designed. And then 17, what was the good news about Roosevelt Lake? 99% full or almost full. Yep. The speeds of the Earth, the Sun, and the Milky Way galaxy. Like 67,000 miles an hour, half a million miles an hour and 1.3 million miles an hour. Just right for each of them. Just right for the Earth, for the Sun, and the galaxy. So they don't run into anything. And so their corresponding gravities are just right for gluing them or holding them in place. What's the glue of the galaxy? Gravity. 3 G's. The glue of the galaxy is gravity. Pretty cool. So way to go, God. Number 19. Galileo, to do a perfect test, would have had to drop those objects in a no atmosphere environment. What do we call that? Here it is right here. Vacuum. It's a vacuum. Yep. What's the scientific method step that means to keep the same? Controlled. What's the scientific method step for method? Procedure. What is the scientific method word that means a difference? Variable. What is the diary step where you write down what happens? Data. So what is the question step where you write down what you want to find out? Problem. What's the thought out guess step? Hypothesis. In the experiment that I mentioned, 1 to 3 tests or 20, which is better? 20. Why? Your conclusion is way more accurate or reliable. You can be sure of it. Okay? What was wrong about the scientific experiment that had all the different liquids? It had the different size batteries. It had the different sizes of light bulbs. Way too many variables not controlled. And a lot of you got it right. It's good. Okay. Number 28 was the different colored backgrounds that would attract or not attract the hummingbirds. What is that? The independent variable or the one variable not controlled. Which planet is like a mirror? Venus. Why? It reflects a lot of its light from the sun because of its thick atmosphere. Mars is rusty. Why is it rusty? It's got iron oxide in the soil. What's iron oxide made of? Iron and oxygen. And it also had to have water. So you only needed 2 of those answers about the Martian soil. So there you have it. So, and my daughter Laura's going to pop in for 8 minutes or something like that and fill you in on something really cool about your magnificent brain. Triple R, those verses and meaning and everything. You know what's on the test. Law of cause and effect. Go for it. Adios. See you on Happy Aloha Friday.
welcome again to Your Magnificent Brain, Learning with Laura. Today I wanted to revisit some of the things that we talked about last week. We talked about relaxation techniques when you come into a performance situation in which the chemicals in your body have gotten to a level of anxiety that doesn't really help with performance, that can sometimes lead to anxious feelings and potentially not being able to focus. So talking about that again, just to review, we talked about taking deep, steady breaths. We talked about closing your eyes and just recentering your focus, about ignoring and silencing the stimuli in your environment and focusing on what you're about to do. We talked about positive messaging, about refocusing your brain, telling yourself, I got this, I can do this. Any type of repetition of a positive message that helps you, again, refocus in on what it is you're about to do. Also, reframing. If you're feeling nervous about something, nervousness and excitement feel very similar. So reframe. Tell yourself that you're excited to be able to take on this challenge. Remind yourself that over and over again. Say, I'm excited. Also, taking all of those things together and telling yourself that this feeling that I'm feeling right now, this is to get my mind and my body ready to face this challenge. This is preparing me to take on this challenge. We talked about it in context of taking a test last week, but really using these relaxation methods, using these framing methods, it's useful for really anything that you're doing that's a performance situation in which you need to focus and do something. It could be playing sports. It could be being in a concert, playing an instrument, singing. It could be acting in a musical or a play. It could be giving a speech in speech class, giving an oral presentation on a book in a literature class. It could be getting ready to take a driver test. Any of that, reframing, breathing, refocusing, telling yourself positive messages, all of these things are important. So all of this kind of leads to frame of mind and really putting things in context. The messages you tell yourself, listen to them. Often we have subconscious systems basically running in our brain. We make decisions without actively thinking about it. We have kind of automated reactions within ourselves. That can be very useful. If we're doing something where all of a sudden we have to react and we can't consciously make a decision, having those automatic systems in place are important. But there are times in which those automatic systems, which are there to protect us, can sometimes actually be detrimental, which means they can basically get in the way of our being able to try and do something. So I wanted to talk about this idea of what you tell yourself going into something. That prediction of what the outcome is going to be can actually hamper your ability to move forward and learn. I would also recommend actively listening to the messages that are going on in your brain, listening to what it is that you're telling yourself. Sometimes we don't often even recognize when we're giving ourselves a limiting belief, something that we're like, oh, I could never do that, whatever it is. When we hear that, what I would say is challenge those thoughts. Actively say to yourself, you know what, I could try that thing and get better at it. And often we think about, well, we only want to try the things that we're going to be good at, but we don't know the things that we are going to enjoy, that we're going to be curious about, that we're going to actually be able to get better at until we try different things. By seeing if you like playing an instrument, if you like playing a sport. By trying those different things, we learn a lot about ourselves. And by telling ourselves that, yes, we can try it, we can see if it's for us, we'll get better, and then we'll be able to decide if it's something that we want to engage in long term. And lots of people might say, oh, but you could try and fail. But I actually disagree with the word fail in general. I think it's trying and practicing at getting better at something by taking steps forward. We don't just try something and we're naturally good at it. That doesn't often happen in this world. Often you have to work hard at it. You have to fully engage, fully work at it. That's why if you're on a basketball team, that's why you do fundamentals over and over and over again, getting your muscles to be able to do the same action over and over and over again that you've refined over time. That's why if you're in a show, a musical, they'll have you dance the numbers over and over and over again until it's in your muscle memory and you're able to do it without thinking about it. When you show up and you give it your all, each attempt will teach you something. It will help you gain additional skills in whatever it is you're doing. The more you do something, the more skills you gain, the more expertise you gain in whatever that is. So keep doing it, keep showing up, keep giving it 100%, and you'll get better at whatever it is you're doing. You may not be the best, but when you start to reframe it as, I want to be better than I was yesterday, you can see all of that forward progression and that change over time as that reaching the goal, rather than setting a goal that might be a specific outcome that you may or may not have control over. Control what it is you can, and set those goals as things that you're working on and you can take responsibility for, in that you're showing up. Also, making mistakes is one of the best ways that we can learn, because we learn what doesn't work, we learn what we've tried before, and we can try new things. We can work on getting a creative solution to something that maybe the last idea didn't work, but maybe the next one will. It helps with innovating. When you try things, they may not work, but you learn what does or what didn't. So then you can start to basically say, okay, these things don't seem to be very effective. I'm going to try out this thing instead. I wanted to leave you with a little statement of truth that my daughter, Alice, gave to us at the dinner table the other day. My daughter is 5 and she's right now learning just the beginnings of how to play video games, and we're starting her with old school stuff like Super Mario Brothers. What she told us, and this is kind of a repetition of some of the themes that we try to help her and her brother Xander understand. She said to us, when I fail, I don't get frustrated. I just try over again. And I think there's something very profound about that, is when we fail at something, when it doesn't go the way that we had hoped it would, we just try again, and we will improve over time. And as Yoda said in one of the recent Star Wars films, a great teacher failure is. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that this is a great week for you, and I will see you next week.